McCormack to close the case in opposition and conclude the debate as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the University Philosophical Society, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to conclude the case in silent opposition to show why Scientology is in no way near as legitimate a religion as anything else we do, maybe even as the Church of Dermot Ahern. But like, to do that, I'm just going to look at a few things in this. I'm going to look like firstly, Sheehan's point about like how could we possibly say something's illegitimate because it's only very new. I'm going to say that that's a load of crap, and that's actually why we define legitimacy, because these things are outdated. And then I can look at what Scientology's promises to people and why that's illegitimate about the way they go about it. But before that, I just have a few points to rebuttal. And firstly, just to deal with like the whole thing we've heard a lot, like, yeah, we know there's religions out there doing lots of bad things, and we feel bad about that. But Scientology preys on the white middle class like us. So we're going to solve that problem first. Like, secondly, this idea that we've heard like from Sheikhs and others that we're going to deny people their right. Like, no, there's a difference between denying something and saying it's not legitimate. Like, you can continue on with your crazy practice. Like, I'm not going to deny you your right to grow dreadlocks and wear skinny jeans. I'm just going to tell you it's stupid, and I'm not going to acknowledge it. We have this weird idea in like white Western society that because I have a belief that it has like some sort of intrinsic value. No, not if it's stupid. Like the Church of Ahern like that. Like, there's no value to that belief. It's stupid. Just like this. Some guy sits down on a boat in 1955 and like writes an insane book about advanced aliens who use H-bombs, which aren't advanced anymore. They were in 1953. Oh. Just comes up with it. Like, that's not a legitimate idea. It's so ridiculous and it's so provably false as a man who admits itself to be false, with quotes that admits to its faults. And like, the best reason we heard, and the people who stand up for this in the way that defines their beliefs, was Australia in 1983. Australia in 1983, like, had so many crazy laws. The most were probably the race laws, which they actively enforced and sought after, like, to stop any foreign people entering their nation. Like, who till today have their native population carry around petrol cards, because you can't trust Evans in petrol. Like, these are the like, secondly, this idea of, like, a priest giving up his time, it's just as bad as you asking you to give up your money. No, because that priest dedication is fundamental to the religion. It is not fundamental to the idea of Scientology that I have to pay that amount of money to get that test. Like, there's no 3,000 overhead for a BTOM test. For example.
Am I point, sir?
No, like, there's just not saying legitimate, just so good to it. Like, lastly, like, we heard from a quote there about how the quote of ethics was taken out of context. Like, ethics isn't the main play of like Scientology. Well, like, we say that's a problem. We say that like one of the reasons that religions survive today and like we give them some sort of ethics and we list them is because they provide an ethical and moral code that people are supposed to live their lives by. Like, while we may not agree with them, like Christianity, the way that you can't be gay, or Islam, you have to wear a burqa, or Judaism, then you have to sit in a chair and be lifted up. Like, the fact is that they provide some sort of code to your life, and that's why we allow people to persist by them, because they need them to continue on. If there's no code of ethics to Scientology, then it lacks a fundamental structure that gives that legitimacy that other religions have. Lastly, Derwin asked the room, why am I here? Silence. I don't know. Like, yeah, Christians go over to Africa and take advantage of African people. You know who doesn't go over to Africa? Scientology, because they don't have any money. So, let's move on to like what ends these other religions' legitimacy. And we think age is an important part of what ends these religions' legitimacy. Because the fact is that most of these religions date themselves so far back that we don't have the possible tools to be able to definitively stand and say, no, he didn't rise from the dead. No, that mountain wasn't full of 8 mystical gods who created the world. No, like, the dome of the rock isn't a meteorite that came in with, like, Allah or something. I don't know. I'm very sorry. I don't know much about those world religions. No, thank you. Like, the fact is that, like, there is a certain amount of impossibility to prove, but there is the kind of media exposure image of the 1950s that we can look at L. Ron Hubbard as a man, and his character, and his writings, and how he acted, and disseminate the works and ideas that he put out there, and be able to say that, nearly to beyond a doubt, they are objectively false. Subjectively false enough that we do not need to give credence to them in any way, shape, or form. Like, lastly, the idea of age and how it works is the fact that the age of these religions and the way they stand out has interwoven them into our society in a way that is not going to be reversed. Like, Scientology's youth means it is something that we can curb. Like, we have enough religions in the world, we don't need to proliferate. The fact is, like, things that are tied into it, like the Christian heritage of Europe, the fact that nearly every constitution pays a heed to Christianity, places like America, in God we trust. The fact is that these religions are so ingrained already within the system that it is a little too late to take them out at this stage. Is that a bad or good thing? That's up to your own personal subjective section. It's true. The thing is that we don't need to keep letting in every person and validating their ideas to the same level of this just simply because it makes them feel good. It's stupid and it's inefficient. We've heard this idea that bad stuff happened in the past with all these other churches, just like Scientology. Well, because bad stuff happened in the past doesn't mean you let bad stuff happen in the future. The idea of progress is that you learn from mistakes, not allow them to repeat. We don't need any more child scandals, although Elrond already did that in the last few days in his boat full of young boys. Let's not worry about that. Lastly, let's look at the idea of why Scientology promises and what it doesn't live up to. Because the reason most of us turn to religion in our lives is either for two reasons. One, to find a sense of community. We've already heard the dangers of the community and the repressive force of the community that this is. Lastly, we turn to it because life is pretty scary. We don't know what's going on and we don't have all the answers. Because we're just small transient beings that spin on this rock for a few years, howling screams, signifying nothing. And it all comes to an end. And the problem is that we are afraid what's going to happen to us while we're on that position and what's going to happen to us in that end. And so a lot of us turn to religion to get those answers. The difference between what this does to give you those answers and what other religions do those answers is the fact that this one sets you up on a necessary course where you have to buy into it, where you buy into it on a monetary level only to get your money. They can give you these answers for free, they can give you this problem, but they don't. They choose not to. Other religions at least have the heart to say, you can continue this and we'll go for free. Come to your 1 hour folk group where we can play guitar and you'll get the answer in salvation. Scientology drafts you into a cult-like system, asking you to put away your money, to throw away your family lives, for the never-ending promise that they do not deliver, that they don't give you that ultimate answer, because you can keep on paying forever and ever to try and ultimately achieve all these skills like talking to animals or immortality, and they will continue to take all of Tom Cruise's money and promise him that everlasting life that he so wants to keep making Mission Impossible movies, and happy to take his money and prey off his fear. That's what Scientology does. It preys off people's fears and it preys off their insecurities to make money. It does not have the same moralistic code that other religions try to offer back a real salvation that they believe in and believe to be true. It is simply a racket to take advantage of the needy and the most vulnerable in our society. And that is why it is illegitimate. Thank you.
That's all of our speakers this evening, and you've heard the arguments, and now it falls to you to vote on the motion. So, this House believes Scientology is as legitimate as any other religion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say nay. Nay. So the nays have it on that one.
Yeah.
Motion carried.